Welcome to Brains, Brawn, and Bougie, a podcast hosted by three lifelong friends who are unapologetically authentic and never afraid to say what's on our minds.
From what's happening in our lives to what's happening in the world around us, we bring our honest opinions, real conversation, and plenty of laughs.
Join us as we unpack life, love, ambition, and everything in between with real talk, real humor, and just the right amount of bougie.
Brains, brawn, and bougie, yeah, we bring the whole thing. Smart talk, strong moves, living life like a queen. Tune in, level up, every week we go deep. Brains, brawn, and bougie, this is where you find your peak.
Everyone, I'm Eileen.
Hello, I'm Renee.
Hi, I'm Patty, and welcome to Brains, Brawn, and Bougie. We are so excited to have you here today. We are having our very first guest. So something totally new for us. We're going to talk about her in a little bit, but we want to start the way we always do, and let's hear a little bit about what we've been doing this week. Eileen, what have you been up to?
This last weekend, I was in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. By the way, gorgeous. It was snowy. It looked like a Hallmark movie. But I was there for the celebration of life of my dear friend, Tia Catherwood. It was astounding, the people that gravitated towards her and how interesting they were and how loving and ride or die from all aspects of her life. And so I was really happy because a lot of people from the Palo Alto Network's enablement team showed up, and we just cried and laughed and then cried some more and then laughed and just drank way too much, as you should in a celebration of life.
I was going to say, Eileen, I saw some pictures and it looked like there was a lot of celebrating.
Yes, and I was dressed in all pink because she loved the Pink Pony Club, and I had my cowboy boots on that I bought in Dark County with you guys because we called her Texas Tia for a while when she lived in Texas. Yeah, so no, it was, one of those bittersweet things that I would not have missed for the world. That's how I show love, is by acts of kindness and gifts and that sort of thing. So I was in the zone. So that's what I've been up to. And it kind of helped not give closure, but it helped to kind of change the memories to the really good ones. Right. So it kind of shifted what my pictures were in my mind.
I have to say, I love more people are going to celebrations of life.
Agreed.
It's so much more uplifting and reminds you that, we're all going to eventually die. We know that's a given, right? Let's celebrate all the great things. I know, sorry, Renee, you're going to live forever.
Right. No, as I have said in the past, Sicilian women do not die. We just get shorter and wrinkler,
and they go
and then also we just poof. We just get smaller. Yeah. But I agree with you. I really do love the celebration of life because that's what you're doing. Instead of it being just so sad and overwhelming, at least you have this opportunity to share. You know what? There are so many good times, and let's talk about those, and let's have some laughs. And obviously the laughs turned into cries, and that's okay. Yeah.
Oh, and let me tell you something. I did the ugly cry. It was like the total where you're trying not to cry and your whole face looks like it's just going to shrivel up like a, 5-day-old apple that had been carved. Yeah, I was exhausted though when I got home because of all the energy that goes into all those emotions, and the laughter and the crying are so close, right? And so
yeah.
I just didn't do much on Sunday, as you guys know. So
yeah, and that's okay.
Yes, and I talked to you, so I could tell you had a good time because your voice was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of talking over loud music. Yeah.
Yes.
Fun.
Renee, what have you been up to?
Well, I am back in Wisconsin. We drove for 2 days, which always makes me just a little senile, being in a car for 2 days. But, we have a big old dog. But I left the land of supposed snow and skiing which was actually 50, 60-degree and blue skies, to come home to spring in Wisconsin, which was over 2 feet of snow. So yay us. And the winds, as you ladies know around here, well, maybe you don't. It was crazy. The winds were crazy. So the drifts are everywhere.
Can't wait to get there.
I know.
Yeah.
Didn't I really make that exciting for you? Yeah.
So exciting. Well, I think I've been in 4 seasons in the last week, so I get it. I get it completely. I was in Iowa, all brown, snow had gone away, everything's muddy. I get to Kentucky and Tennessee, and everything is green and gorgeous, and the tulip poplars are blooming and the Bradford pears are blooming, so it's just blooms everywhere. And then yesterday I drove up and I went through a little bit of snow coming down, and then I got to Chicago, just nothing, a little bit of snow in Milwaukee. All of a sudden I'm north of Manitowoc, and boom, massive snow everywhere. It's wild. It's winter. It's absolutely 100% winter here.
And it's so funny because remember growing up, we'd have drifts up to and above the garage doors.
Yes. Well, and there's a lot of drifts here.
Right. But then we went through a dry spell, much like the Packers, went through a dry spell of not having a lot of snow and dealing with green lawns during the holidays. Like, what up?
I know. Yeah. Good old climate change, right? Good old climate change.
We are getting in the old traditional winter in Wisconsin this year.
I mean, it's the snow-plowed mounds of snow you remember from our childhood on the side of the road. It's fascinating. You're going to love it. And we can't wait for you to join us. But we still have a podcast to do. We're going to bring Tracey on here in just a few minutes. So, yeah.
I want to give a shout out. Today would have been Christopher's 31st birthday.
And
Christopher is my sister's son. He died at 18 from cancer. He had peripheral sheath tumor. It was very rare because he had neurofibromatosis as well, and he was autistic. But tonight when I land in Green Bay, my sister is making his favorite meal, which is homemade mac and cheese.
He was a great human being. It was a treasure.
He was a funny kid. Funny kid.
Yeah. Great person.
But no, I'm excited about today's topic, and when Tracey joins us, we'll go through an introduction. She should be here any minute, and this is for everybody. It's not just for women, it's for men as well. So, listen and take notes.
And it's a little bit different than our normal podcasts, but we're really excited. Cannot wait to have our very first guest. So let's take a beat. Let's bring her on in. All right.
Awesome. Oh my God. I am so excited to have Tracey Newell as our first official guest. Hi, Tracey. How are you?
Tracey.
Glad to be here.
Good. I have had the fortune, the blessing to have been able to work for Tracey over a course of about, 6 years. I don't know if you remember, Tracey, I interviewed with you at Polycom.
Do you remember?
And I didn't get the job. Yeah, well, when I didn't get the job, but I fell in love with Tracey. And so totally had that soulmate, girl crush, mentor, have to work with her. And so I actually reinvented myself in the security space, and I reached out to Tracey. She was at Proofpoint, and I said, hey, willing to start anywhere. And we worked together as I ran the West sales team. And then one day she tapped me on the shoulder and she said, hey, do you want to start enablement? Tracey, I have to say, and you know this about yourself because I tell you all the time, I think she is the most empathetic, the most understanding, calm, and strategic leader that I've ever seen in high tech. And there are a lot of leaders in high tech. Tracy was always my go-to, my mentor, someone that I could, throw things on a whiteboard and figure out. And she would roll up her sleeves and help all her employees be successful. And that's what I just loved about you, is you would find the people that were really good and you would make them create the strategy and put it all together, because it would get done quickly with the right intelligence and the right experience. And you were just this puppet master, which was phenomenal. And I have to say, you manage up very well. Very well. But Tracy has done so many things in her career, presidents of public run companies in very difficult parts of high tech, within data and within security. And so I applaud you, Tracy. You are such a great role model for so many of us out here. But I just want to hand it off to you if you want to say a couple words, and then we're going to start drilling you on some questions.
I'm looking forward to that. And for all the listeners, be careful what you say around Eileen, because she's got a mind like a steel trap, and everything that she covered is 100% accurate. And it was a very kind introduction. I'm going to add puppet master to my LinkedIn profile, because that's a new one for me. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I'll add it anyway.
It's an art form, Tracy. I'm telling you, you could get anyone to do anything for you. And that is that talent of being able to work cross-functionally and make it work. And so, yeah.
We're gonna
Awesome.
talk about a lot this morning, I know, but let's talk about hiring, because that's one of the most important aspects to being successful, is just surround yourself with people smarter than you. That's a core aspect of leadership. So
100%.
Absolutely.
100%. Well, and Eileen, hold up the book. You've got the book, right? Hers for the Taking.
I do have the book.
There it is. So
It's a great
we're
title.
going to link all that.
And it's my favorite color.
It is her favorite colors. We're going to link all that so people can have access and go exactly to where they need to get your book, which everybody should read. And we did. We all read the book, and so many different things resonated with me. I think with the others, I know Renee and I talked a little bit about it, because just an amazing book. So we got things we want to talk about, little pieces here and there. I have a different, maybe kind of first question for you, Tracy, which is, so you wrote this book. It's a book you started in your 30s and you finished it, and it came out a year ago. And what is the most surprising outcome of the book for you? What didn't you expect to happen that happened from writing this book?
Writing a book is a little bit terrifying. It's a little bit like walking onto a stage and you don't actually know if anyone's going to be in the audience. And so, I wrote the book. It was a labor of love for certain. People have asked, how long did it take? And my answer is somewhere between 3 months and 30 years, because I've been doing women's diversity work for 30 years. And after 30 years, we haven't made enough progress. You look at the top 5 jobs for the top 3,000 companies in the U.S., and less than 17% of those people in those roles are women. And so we have a lot of work to do. So I wrote the book as a labor of love to just try to help more people instead of one-on-one. I didn't feel like that was scaling. And what was most surprising is the feedback that I've gotten from complete strangers, men and women, have been posting on LinkedIn, you have to read this book. And I was really pleased that several men reached out and said, this is not a book for women. This is a book for people that aspire to do more in their career.
That's awesome.
And a number of men reached out and said, I'm a dad, I'm trying to help the women on my team more, and they've reached out with very thoughtful questions around why we do what we do. So, one of the comments I make in the book is men are from Mars and women are from Venus, and they're both great planets. That's an old book, but it really is true. And learning how to help each other and learn from each other is a big piece of the book as well.
I was, in fact, thinking about my daughter's graduating from college, and she has 4 girlfriends graduating with her. And I thought, this is the kind of the book that they need to read. They need to understand about, because we don't always hear about the planning. And I love how you really highlighted all that people don't plan enough. And I think that resonates in all of our lives. At what point did you kind of recognize that as such an important piece to put in your book?
Yeah, so I love that, Patty. A big piece of the book is if we want more women in executive roles and we want more women in the boardroom, we have to have a bigger pipeline. And so I really wanted to encourage more women in their whether they're out at, college bound or whether they're in their, 30s, early 40s, to start thinking bigger and playing the long game about what do you really want to do. And, all of you have been so successful in your lives. A big piece as to why I was able to do what I did accomplish was because somebody helped me. They tapped me on the shoulder and said, do you want to run a company someday? And I can remember being 30 years old, looking around like, you're talking to me? Like my life was a hot mess back then. What are you talking about? I had 2 little kids. I could barely do the job that I was in. And they're asking me, do you want to run a company? And I honestly think if they hadn't have seen that in me, I don't know that I would have ever aspired to do something big. I'd never met anyone that had run a company, let alone thought about doing it myself. So
I think that's wonderful. So the only time I get tapped on the shoulders for people to say, could you move over?
it's not true. That's not true.
We all know that's not true.
It's funny because and this is, I think, where I missed out. I didn't have a role model. And Tracey, I don't think your mother's awesome, but I don't think you had that corporate role model as a female. I surely didn't when I was in my 20s. I don't think I ever really did very good planning. I just never said no. Do you want to do this? Absolutely. I didn't care what it was because I just wanted to learn. But I think I could have gone maybe further, but I don't have your capability and expertise in how to play the game, because you do have to play the long game, and you do have to figure out where the chess pieces go. And you run up against a lot of, leaders that you have to report to that you're like, wow, can I outlive that person to get to where I need to get to, right? And I think you did that great. Like, you were looking at the long game. I'm like, I don't like you. I'm leaving.
That's not true, Eileen. But no, I think one of the bigger stories that changed my life was someone saying to me in my 30s, do you want to run a company? And my answer was an emphatic no. It was stuttering. I was stumbling through the conversation. And she said, why not? And I said, because I have 2 little kids. And what are you talking about? This is a Fortune 100 company, and I'm not capable, and I don't have the skills. And her feedback was, would you do it in 10 years when your life was maybe a little calmer, or maybe your kids are grown and off in high school and college? And her asking that question caused me to pause and say, maybe. And her follow-up was, well, then get the right experiences now, so you have that option. So it was a combination of putting the idea in my head, but also saying, you don't actually have to say, I want to go be a CEO right now. You just have to say, I might want to do that. And then when you tell people, I might want to be you someday, they do give you bigger experiences, like talking you into go do enablement, Eileen, which you did say no, by the way. And I said, no, this is really important. This is one of the most strategic jobs I have.
See, I remember the 6 a.m. calls from Tracey, and I'd just be sitting there looking at the caller ID going, oh no, she's going to talk me into it. I know it. And she did. But it was the right move. I mean, I think you saw something in me just like that woman saw something in you about what your capabilities could be. I didn't even know how to spell enablement when you asked me. I'm like, oh my God. It was a new thing.
I think you made some excellent points too about just supporting other people, and in this case, women. You didn't see it in yourself, but someone else did it. You referenced surrounding yourself with capable people that might not have the vision for themselves that you have for them, but it's so telling of how important it is for women to uplift other women in whatever stage they are, and say, you might not see it in yourself, but I see it in you, and let's come along for the ride. And especially in this day and age where you referenced having 2 kids, it wasn't the time and place. I think now that we're all older, we realize there's never a time and a place. Life is chaos. If you have 2-year-olds, 18-year-olds, or 35-year-olds, you're always navigating this crazy environment called life. And sometimes you have to kind of step out of the chaos to say, you know what? This is just life. Let's be okay with it. It's just life, and take that feedback from other people in business settings or life and just go with it. Take the chance.
Yeah, Eileen said that earlier, Renee. You just say yes, even when you're a little scared or nervous. And there's no question, women, we tend to say no a lot more than men do. For whatever reason, we're a bit more risk adverse. We're really humble. I have so many stories about where, one of my guy friends pulled me aside. I remember I had just gotten promoted. I was running $1 billion business for Cisco, and one of the lead partners for one of the, top Fortune 100 companies that we were doing business with said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm in sales." And this friend of mine, who was also my peer, pulled me aside and he goes, "What is wrong with you?" And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, "You are running $1 billion." Like, "Oh, I'm in sales." And he goes, "The next time someone asks you that question, you go, I lead the West. It's $1 billion. I'm the vice president, and just own who you are." And so, I think you're right, Renee. We as women need to pull more women up the ladder with us. But I also think we need to embrace our male allies, because if 3% of the executive officers in the Russell 3000 are men, we need to know who those people are, and we need to learn from them because they're so different. I remember when I was working for, a gentleman who changed my life. He looked at me, we were working on a presentation, and he was really frustrated with me, and he goes, "Less words." And I go, "What?" He goes, "Less words."
My life.
Short. Can't you say it with 3 words instead of 20? But that was a good learning for me that I probably wouldn't have gotten from, a female mentor.
You did pass that down to me. It's like, if it can't fit on one slide, stop.
However, I'm
This is
going
a
to
good
challenge that. Only because I agree with you. We have to be more cognizant of the environment we're in, which is far more male dominant. But I would argue that fewer words helps us fit into their world. And at some point, they may need to fit into our world a little bit better. Like, I need more than 3 words. Like, what is happening up here? Feel free to share. I'm here to listen. So
that is really,
that.
really insightful, Renee. I love that. I think sometimes we as women tend to over-explain because we feel like everybody needs to understand our processes to where we got to this point. In fact, my daughter cracks me up because, I will be talking to the cashier and something will happen, and then I'll keep talking, and she puts her hand on my arm like, "Okay, you've done enough talking. You don't need to tell them your whole life story." I'm like, I do. I need to tell them everything. But we tend to over-explain, which is kind of that idea that we also tend to say sorry too much. Tracy, you talked about that.
It's like such a hot topic for me.
I know. And it's something that I think the younger generation's a little bit better at than we are. But yeah, so hot topic. Talk a little more about that.
Well, I've been on LinkedIn a lot, not as much as Eileen, but I'm trying. Sorry,
She's a pro.
She is a pro. And I put in a post up, and I'm holding one of those little Lowry's spaghetti packets because that was my mom's favorite, and it's still my favorite. And the comment at the top said, the man says, "I have a hard stop at 5. The woman says, "I'm so sorry, I got to pick up my kids today. My husband's out of town and I feel really bad." And it went viral. It got 300,000 impressions in 24 hours, and all these women were like, "Oh my gosh!" And so many, not so many, most of the men were like, "Please God, stop doing that," but there were a couple that got really mad and they're like, "Hey, I'm a single dad and I have to leave early too," and they took offense as if women are the only ones that have lives outside of work. And I said, no, you're missing the point. I'm complimenting the people that say, I have a hard stop at 4:30. I gotta go. My message was, stop apologizing for life. Just net it out. What do you need to do? When do you need to do it? And we don't need to know why you need to leave. It's none of their business. If you're going to a baseball game, then don't miss the first inning. Just go.
Right. Translate that. I'm sorry, Patty and I were talking about this earlier. I see that I do a lot of mountain and road biking, cycling, and there are women mentors out there that are saying, women, stop saying, I'm sorry, that you're the last one up the hill or the finish line. So it translates, again, not just to the work environment, but real life. It's just the changing of the verbiage. Thanks for waiting. Wasn't that fun?
It's weird.
I'm here now.
It's a weird.
But get the I'm sorry and stop apologizing for things that you do not need to apologize. And that might be leaving for work to, go see a baseball game, whatever it is.
Really? I was at a golf tournament with these two young women that were amazing. They were on their college teams. And they were apologizing like, "Oh, I'm so sorry I walked in front of you. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know what they're sorry for." And I finally stopped. I'm like, "Hey, stop doing that for the rest of your life. Right. If you actually did something that was wrong or mean, yes, let's be sorry for that. But we need to get rid of those words from our repertoire unless we're truly intentional and there's something to apologize for."
Right. It's that difference of taking accountability when you truly did something offensive or that you would like to take back, rather than living your life and apologizing just for who you are and the things that you need to accomplish. So very different things.
I think where I experience that the most, and I'm guilty of it too, is if I'm working with someone that has very little to no EQ. Because you almost feel like you have to apologize because they come at you pretty aggressive and they really don't give a shit what you got going on. And if something isn't exactly the way it's wanted, then I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I'll get it right, because they don't have that ability to really communicate well. I think there needs to be more complimenting along the way. Like, that's a really great start. This looks really good. What about if we do it this way, versus kind of pushing it back and then you're back on your heels saying you're sorry.
I think
when you really
in that example, I think it could actually be used as a power play, right? And so someone comes at me really aggressively. "Gosh, I'm so sorry. You seem really upset right now. What's going on? Are you having a bad day?"
Do you feel
I'm sorry that you're not understanding.
How Eileen introduced you? I do see that as your superpower, to just bring things down and even keel it out. And then you're going for this is what needs to happen. But if you take that emotional out of it, that's its own power play, right?
It's so funny you say that, because I was asked recently, what's your superpower? I do counsel a lot of folks, and I always say, you need to know what your superpower is, but I do think my superpower is, and Eileen said it earlier, is just being able to stay calm in really difficult situations. I had a boss once say that, as the leader, you're the foundation of the flagpole, and if you start to move even a little bit, the flag at the top is just going like this, employees are going, what is going on right now? And customers and partners. And so, the more you can stay calm, it's also gives you a ton of power, because everybody else is getting so upset that if you can be the one to go, "Okay, I know we're upset right now. Let's just calm down and talk about what we do know," and
Well, and I remember some really interesting forecast calls where I'm like, oh my God, I would be like, really pushing back. But, Tracey just took a deep breath, tried to understand the situation, provided some input, and then we ended the call. And then I was in the office with her. She's like, oh my God, but it helped everyone perform better, right? Because she stayed calm.
Personality trait or something you actively worked at?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think to some extent it's just inherent in me, but it definitely, you can learn, how to handle it when, the duck, in the water who's paddling furiously, or the swan, I guess it is. You can learn how to do that. I remember working with someone that Eileen knows, I won't say who, but it was an end of a quarter. He's a sales leader, and I walked by his office, and he's literally got his head in his hands. And he had glass doors in front, and I started laughing. I'm like, what are you doing? You're freaking everybody out right now. Like, stop. You got to control what you can control. We got to get through this.
I think you ran a well-orchestrated ballet, which might be the wrong word for it, but when COVID hit, and we were working together and talk about trying to navigate a situation that A, no one knew where it was going, B, our employees were dying from it, C, the employees were just looking for help me, I don't know how to do my job, as the world is changing. And Tracey, I know that was difficult for you too, because you were working with HR and the CEO and everybody trying to message it not only internally, but externally. Like, was that one of your more difficult situations?
For sure. I think it was for anyone who was in an operating role, because there was no playbook. It didn't exist. And so we had to take it one day at a time. But I do think in any crisis, that's really what you have to do, is you have to be extremely present, live in the moment, understand what do we know, and communicate what you know, and be honest on the areas that you just don't have clarity for yet, and yet commit to keep the employees, customers, partners up to speed as you go. And they understand that's all you can do, right? And it's where trust gets built in the worst times. I've just seen terrible situations, unfortunately. We've all had macro economies go upside down, a few times, at least every 5 to 10 years. And those are the times where the right leaders can really shoot ahead, because you can build trust with your employees and customers by staying calm, and communication skills are paramount. Just over communicating is critical.
It's interesting. Renee and I were talking a little bit about COVID before this, Eileen. You didn't know that. And it had to do with the conversation in your part of the book, Tracey, where you talk about you couldn't take that role because it would take so much travel and you'd be away from your kids, and all these kind of assumptions you had about what the role was when you really didn't know all of what the role was. But COVID kind of took those away for a lot of people, because we found we didn't need to travel all the time. There are other ways we can do things. And when you talk about leaders being able to kind of do that, pivoting, the problem solving, another piece that resonated for me is that we as women are huge problem solvers in our everyday life all the time, but we don't always recognize how we problem solve in the workplace and promote ourselves doing that. And I loved in your book where you talked about that, don't play small, get out there, let everybody know what you're doing. There's just so many. Again, this book is great. Everybody should read it, right? That's what we want. So I'm not sure I have a question in there. I literally was like, oh, there's so many nice pieces I want to talk about in this book. So just a general comment. Yeah.
But it's a good comment, because it's for folks that are ambitious and still want to do more, whatever more is for you personally, professionally, whatever your goals are. And what you're talking about, I've been telling everybody, everyone wants to be a chief, a chief executive officer, a chief revenue officer, a chief product officer. And I've been saying, hey, everybody's getting promoted. You're now the chief problem solver, right? And if you could just be the one that shows up at any of your doors to say, hey, I've noticed this is broken. Hey, I'm in higher ed and I've noticed that this is messed up, Patty. And I'd like to create a a cross-functional group to fix this. Would that be okay with you? And can I come tell you every 3 or 4 months, like what we're doing? And maybe I'll bring some of the team with you so they can get some visibility. And, it's not altruism because it's bugging me. Like, I want to fix this problem. You can do that in any nonprofit, in any corporation. There's always problems. And the people that step up to say, I want to fix it, those are the people that, get promoted over and over and over again.
How important, Tracey, is it for you to have a brand and stick to that brand to further your reach? I mean, my brand is I'm crazy, but I'm going for a much different audience and different things. Has your brand changed over time, and how important is that for you to really be solid, for you to take that next step?
Yeah, your brand is you get stuff done, just for the record. No prisoners. Yeah, so I guess first and foremost, I would counsel anyone that's listening to be clear on what your brand is, because you have one. And when I ask people what's your brand, most people don't know. They go, I think that people would say this, and I think that people would say that. So get clarity on what people are actually saying, because they are saying something. When you're not in the room, hey, what do you think about Tracey? They're going to say something. So, you want to, I think, if you're serious about your career, you should be clear on that, and then you can manage it once you have clarity. So,
can morph it along the way, correct?
You totally can once you have clarity on what folks are saying. Once so I say go to 5 people. Go to your boss, maybe your boss's boss, a couple of peers, maybe somebody, if you manage people, a couple of folks that work for you, and say, hey, if you pick 3 words to describe me, what would that be?
I love that.
And a friend of mine, she's in the book, I think. She is in the book, and she was saying, she talks about it in the book, and she said, somebody got promoted, and it said, this is the nicest person we know. And she goes, yeah, I don't want to get promoted to somebody say I'm the nicest person that you know. And she was talking to people that worked for her, and the guys laughed and said, oh, don't worry, we wouldn't say you're the nicest person that we know. She didn't mean it in a bad way. Of course, she's lovely and empathetic, and she's respectful and all the things. But what she meant is she wants to be known, for the person who does get stuff done, maybe strategic, the problem solver, operational excellence. And so, but I do agree, Renee. Yeah, your brand will change over time, just based upon as you grow. You just keep adding to your tools and your tool belt.
Well, and what?
And I would do just being on boards and going after board seats, like that brand's got to be dialed in, and your expertise has to be right at the forefront, because getting a board seat isn't easy, right?
Like,
and, for a while I thought that was the direction I wanted. But how hard is it? I mean, honestly, you said 17%, right? In top positions. How hard is it to get on a board?
Thanks, Eileen. I had that very same question.
Oh,
great minds.
Yeah.
So I want to back up, because something that you hinted at, I think, is really important, whether you want a board role or you want your first job. I was just mentoring someone, this darling young gal who's 21 years old, and she's trying to get an internship. And I said, what's your 2-minute elevator pitch? And I will say the same thing to someone who wants a board seat. What's your 2 minutes on why a CEO should bring you on his or her board? And it's amazing to me, people cannot answer that question. It's like it's rocket science. And I'm like, you guys, you cannot read your resume to somebody. That's so annoying. What's your 2 minutes? And so, my 2 minutes is, hey, I grew up in really big companies. Actually, I start with the CEO or the recruiter. Doesn't matter who I start with. I go, would it be helpful if I gave you the 2 minutes on me? And they always just sigh and go, oh, that'd be great. Because they're so happy I'm not going to read them my resume. And then I say, hey, I grew up in really big companies like AT&T and Cisco. And from there, I just kept going to smaller organizations. And I specialize in hypergrowth. I was at WebEx when we were growing at 60% a year, and SaaS was a brand new idea. We ran the West for Cisco when we were growing at 20% a year at scale. And I joined this little company called Proofpoint. We went from 100 to 700 million in 5 years. That company's $2.5 billion today. And And what I'm doing now is, and then I segue to what I want. I'm looking for a board seat, and I have criteria on that. So you have to be clear on why you're awesome and what you want. And you need to be able to articulate those superpowers in a couple of minutes. And then how hard is it to get the board seat? Well, then you need to have a C in your title. The CEO is going to want people on his or her board that he or she views as peers and people that can help them to be more successful. And so, whether it's a go-to-market leader, a CFO, a sitting CEO, they're going to want people that have had those roles. And then they're going to want people that have done something special when they were in those roles, right? I helped this company solve this problem, which is similar to your issues that you're trying to solve. So you need to have clarity on why you're great. And then you need to understand what that board is looking for and how you can help them.
That translate if you're looking to become a board member or interviewing for that first job, of just being able to vocalize concisely and not be afraid to practice it offline. Because one of the things that I thought was very interesting also in your book, you made a reference to what is heard and how it is heard is often more important than what is said. And you got to practice in order for what is rattling around up here and how it comes out. I mean, there might be a huge disconnect, and it's going to take practice. And as we said, women have that urge to over-explain. So practice it. Practice the interview. If it's for the first job out of college or to get onto a board.
I advise that I should be able to call you at 2 a.m. and go, Renee, why are you the person for that board seat? And you can go, and not literally, but it should be practiced and then with people that you trust, and you need to give them permission to tell you the truth. So, I think that was a game changer for me in my career. A lot of people say they want feedback, but they don't really want feedback. They get defensive. And the second you get defensive, you're shutting down that feedback loop. So I used to tell people, hey, Eileen's heard me say it 100 times. This is what I would say to individual contributors on my team. I try to be right more than I'm wrong, but I get it wrong. And you are on my team to tell me when I get it wrong. And I want you to call me. And I promise I'll put you in the witness protection program. I will never use your name. I will never get you in trouble. And I had sales account managers and systems consultants, people that are on the front line call me up and go, man, you really messed this up. Like, people are going to quit. This is a disaster. And I'm like, what are you, I didn't do that, but I will go look into it. I'll fix it. But the same is true with why you're awesome, right? Like, practice your role playing, practice your pitch, but tell the people that you're talking to, please, 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 I used to tell people, you can hurt my feelings if you try really hard, but you will have to try really hard to hurt my feelings. Like, please be honest on things that you like and that you don't like.
We are all, hey, how do I look in this pair of jeans? And when your significant other goes, hey, you're like, do you know how much I spent on these? And we are totally irrational. It's like, don't ask a question if you don't want the answer to it, because I want the honest answer. So be prepared. Again, if you're asking somebody how a pair of jeans look, or if you are asking for a new role at work and what I need to do.
It's the way you ask about the jeans, though, Renee. So if you say, hey, do these jeans make me look fat? No, you make them look fat. So
the jeans are fine. It's the fat ass in the jeans.
It's you.
Thank you. Sorry.
You guys are all braver than me. I don't ask about how my jeans look. Gosh, man, that could hurt my feelings.
Oh my God, my poor husband every day. How does this look? Does this look better with this? What about the? He's just like, oh my God, go away. Like, just find something to do.
One of the things you also said in your book, and I love her, and it was a phrase that Ali Wong said. And again, Patricia and I were talking about how inappropriate Ali Wong is, and that is why I love her and her comedy. But she said, if I only had a wife, I could do so much more in life. If I only had a wife. Because we all know wives get shit done.
They really do.
Job,
So
give
true.
it to a wife or a mom. They will get it done.
Well, my mom always said, if you want something done, give it to the busiest
I
person.
agree
you
with
know.
that too. Yeah.
Which are often the women,
Yeah.
oftentimes the women. And again,
Yeah.
the other piece of
Yeah.
that though, and I know this part of this is talked about in the book, but you can't keep taking on responsibilities without getting the credit for it. And I think women do that too much in the workplace as well. We do it at home sometimes with, all that unintended labor that we sometimes have to do. And then in the office, well, I'm just going to take care of this. And Tracey, it sounds like from the book and from Eileen that's one of the great things. You give your teams credit, but you allow them to do the work too. A lot of people don't allow people to do the work.
Yeah, so if you're hiring people that can do the current job and the next job after, and you're hiring people that are smarter than you, then why wouldn't you let them do the work? And why wouldn't you give all the credit to them when they do the work? Because everyone's clear you're their boss, so.
Yeah, you're making your boss look good either way, right?
Yeah, but there's another element too to, Patty, what you were just saying, which is sharing what you're doing. Because women are renowned for being the hardest worker, and remote has made this worse because nobody knows what you're doing when you're
That's
working
true.
once a week. And so, the number of times men and women have said to me, I'm so bad at managing up. And I'm like, well, what is that? That sounds manipulative to me. But I looked at the people that were solving real problems for the company, that were brave enough and courageous enough to come tell me about that and say, hey, I know we're trying to do X, Y, and Z. And I just figured it out. There was one gentleman who's now a CRO, Eileen knows as well. And he was always, we were trying to get a relationship with Google going, and we just couldn't figure it out. All of a sudden, this guy over on the East Coast is just crushing it, and he's got classrooms full of Google employees in all the time, and I couldn't, I called him in my office. I go, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I just created this workshop, and I did that, and I did the other thing, and he wasn't managing up. He was telling me how he solved a problem that I was trying to solve globally. And so anytime, we as women, we do take on too much. Saying no is a real gift and a real skill that we all need to be at. But when you do take something on and you solve it, and you tell your boss or your boss's boss or a cross-functional leader that, hey, I figured out a better mousetrap, you're not managing it. You're helping the whole company to be successful. And that's all that anybody in an executive role wants. They want the company to be more successful.
Have you found yourself in situations, I'm sure the answer is yes, but when your upper management is not supporting you, and yet you've got to be that buffer to the people in your org to keep them motivated, loyal, interested, and producing. What's the advice then for the folks that aren't supporting you in the role they hired you for?
I don't know if folks are going to like my answer, but, Eileen would tell you I don't have much of a filter. It's gotten less and less. It's just easier to remember what I say, if I'm honest. And so, back to the flagpole analogy, I never bring my team into that. If I'm not getting along with my boss, my team would never know that. I would never let them be part of that, any of that conversation. My job is to inspire them to do their best work and to control what we can control. And let's just leave the water cooler behind. Let's go do what we're supposed to do and make our customers more successful today. And I've never, ever not been focused on that with my team. And that's actually what makes my job fun, is my team. But if I'm not getting along with my boss, I protect the group that I'm working with and for. But it's probably not a long-term, I'm probably not going to last that long in that situation, because life is short. I want to work with people that I like, people that I respect, people that I learn from, people I can look up to. And if I'm not getting along, I don't take that personally. I just view that's a sign that it's time to look for my next move.
Has there been any regrets in your career? Like, I wish I would have stayed there longer, or I wish I would have taken that job? Or is it just everything happened and it's a product of all those things that make you who you are today? But any regrets?
I try not to play the woulda, coulda, shoulda game, because it's just super unhelpful to, you can't change the past, obviously. There were definitely times in my career where I thought, oh my goodness, like this is just, it's not fun. I should have done this. I shouldn't have done that, taking this job, not that job. But it's always amazing to me that when I look back 10 years later or 5 years later, that hardship, that impossible situation made me so much more equipped for whatever it was I was going to go do next. And I think, and Eileen, you're a perfect example of this too, because the reason I didn't hire you when I was at Polycom, you'll remember, is you were an officer of a public company. So you had this big giant job and it just didn't feel like the right fit for where we were at Polycom. But you took a big chance in going backwards a bit into Proofpoint, and yet it worked out, I think you would say, really well. I mean, you had a really good run and went on to work for much bigger companies and do amazing things. I went backwards and sideways a lot more than I went up. And I went from managing 300 people to being an individual contributor to get into a hot industry back when when Cisco's stock was splitting 2 or 3 times a year. So I think back then, did I regret that at the time? Oh my gosh, I'm giving up everything. I'm going backwards. And yet when you get into a high growth industry, you already have the leadership experience. You can go forward 2 or 3 times faster than everybody else. When I went to Cisco, I was a rep. And 2 years later, I was back managing 300 people. And everyone said, how did you do that in 2 years? I'm like, I didn't. I did that in 12, right? Because I had gotten so much different experience in another company, another industry.
Yep. Yeah, but I think people need to kind of look at that zigzag kind of journey, that it isn't always a rocket ship to the top. Now, there are success stories like that, but I think those are fewer and further.
Tracey, we want to be mindful of your time. We're getting close to the end of ours. I can't believe how fast this has gone by. So happy you came to talk to us. I do have a final question. Does anybody else have anything? They absolutely. All right, Renee, I saw the hand go up. All right, you go.
Tracy, are you concerned about the backward step that diversity and equity is taking in this current administration? Because I'm not in the corporate world and I'm looking around going, this looks a little frightening. But from someone who has been in that world, and you mentioned diversity in your book a few times, what's your take on all this?
I said I was in an operating role for 30 years, and I've seen this pendulum swing on diversity a couple of times. It back in 2000, so it's literally 20 years ago, that we were doing a lot of the same things we were moving towards over the last 5 years of almost, well, it wasn't almost, it was quotas, like let's count up how many red, yellow, green, and purple people we have, and start reporting on that. And it can create a slippery slope, right? Because now, are you hiring the best people? Are you discriminating? Is that constitutional to hire someone because they're red, yellow, green, or purple? And so then when that happens, when we go to this really far extreme, then I've seen the pendulum swing to the other side, which is where we are now. Some companies have really gotten extreme. You can't go to ERG groups, employee resource groups, anymore. We are not going to participate in, these, whatever organizations that are for a specific group. And that seems crazy to me too, right? Like either extreme seems a little unbalanced to me. And I believe the pendulum always will swing back into the middle. I always point to there was a CEO of Genentech when that was an independent company, and she was an amazing CEO. And I thought I raised a question that was a total softball, because they had perfect diversity metrics. They were 51% female. They had every single, gender and race. Everything was just unbelievably balanced. And so my softball was, hey, how did you do this? And she actually got a little befuddled because she goes, oh, gosh, I don't know. Because once you get diversity in your organization, it kind of solves itself because,
right.
everybody,
diversity attracts diversity.
Us, whatever us is, and bring our friends and our amazing people into the organization. But why do we need diversity? Because at the end of the day, 51% of the buyers are women. So if you don't have good diversity in your company, you're at a huge disadvantage because you're going to create products that half the population doesn't want. The same thing applies to race and age and everything else. So the more diverse you are, the better and more competitive your company will be. And that's why we should have diversity inside the organization.
Why is it the word diversity when it is just our world?
Yes, it should just be a practice. Yeah.
It's the way to create competitive advantage, there's no question.
So I have a question for you, Tracey. What's next? What's the next? You wrote a book. You're on 1,000 boards. You're C-suite. You've raised a beautiful family. You're a grandma now, right?
You're a grandma.
Oh my
Lucky
God.
you.
Yes, she's done it. So what's the next mountain we're going to climb?
One of the reasons I want more people to aspire to do great things is because when the better your leadership qualities, the more impact that you have inside of a company, you can use those same skills to pay it forward and make a difference for other organizations and to try to make this world a bit better. So that's one of my biggest passions. I'm still doing board work. As Eileen mentioned, I'm on 5 boards for corporations. But I am also doing quite a bit in charity. And I honestly wrote the book for philanthropy. Like, don't write a book because you want to make money. That's not a good reason to write. You write a book because you want to be a public speaker or because you want to help somebody. But I love my organizations my nonprofits. I sit on the board of Forward, which is a Christian nonprofit helping women to reach their God-given potential. And then I am so passionate about Bridge Rwanda, which is making a huge difference in conservationist farming in Rwanda. 85% of the farmers are women just trying to feed their family, and they can help them to get 3 to 4 times the output, which means they can feed their family for the year, but they can also have extra money for the first time to, have a profit. So those, whatever you're passionate about, whatever makes you mad, whatever makes you excited, I would encourage everybody. You don't have to wait to be, quote, semi-retired. Get involved because there's so many organizations that need your skills. There's millions of nonprofits, but they need people that know how to manage people, that know how to scale, that know how to do critical thinking and strategy. And it's loads of fun.
Well, if you're ever hiring, I'm applying, just so you know.
Well,
What are you applying for? You're retired.
Whatever she's
doing?
hiring, I don't care.
It doesn't matter.
I remember when she left Fruit Point, and I was sitting on the beach at a bonfire because I just needed to let it bleed because I was so upset. But you called me. And I remember I said, Tracey, I haven't learned everything I need to learn from you yet. And there's still so much. And you're like, it will happen. And it did.
Hey.
So,
Yeah, exactly. Finish that up. All right.
Well, now we're going to teach you how to be retired.
She's doing a good job of it so far. She is throwing herself into our podcast. We love it. All right, Tracey. Last question. What's your next book?
Oh, I don't know. I have not gotten to my next book, so I'm still working on this one. But I really appreciate you guys having me on the podcast. And if I could leave, all of your listeners with one, most important message, it would be that you can do so much more than you know. So I really hope that you will double click on what you really, really want personally, professionally, whatever it is that matters to you, because I've studied human nature for 30 years and people truly are unstoppable when they set their mind on their goal and their target. That's my hope for all of you.
well said.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much. We so enjoyed meeting you and talking to you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Wow, that was amazing talking to Tracey. What a great person, and just listening to her, she's so inspirational. It was fabulous that she's took her time to talk to us today. I'm so glad.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Patricia. She is such a easy person to communicate and talk to. And I felt like so many of the things that I read on her book, and then she reaffirmed, it's not just for women in business, just a wealth of information. She was a real treat. I enjoyed it.
She was.
Yeah, and I just imagine how great it was to report to someone like that.
Yeah.
And I really feel that I got lucky. You know, I went after a role when she was at Polycom and I didn't get it, but it was really for the best. And then, you know, I looked her up when I changed my focus to cybersecurity, and she remembered me and got me in. And I have to tell you, the guy who hired me didn't want to hire me.
So
but I ended up loving Carl anyway. But she has been such a force of nature in my career that, you know, there's nothing I could give her that would show the thanks that I have, except for just the accolades of just what a beautiful human being she is. Very, very lucky.
And thanks to you, Eileen, for asking her to join us.
And the book was, I don't want to say easy reading, but it wasn't a chore to read. It flowed so lovely. It is a good length where it's not going to bog you down for hours and hours and hours. It was a great business book with so many life lessons in it.
Yeah, and I think we should put a link on our website where you can get the book. I would suggest that anybody read it, really, at any age. I think the younger you are, the better off it's going to be, because you still have a lot of choices to make in your career. So
I definitely agree. And I guess as we wrap up, I just want to say to all our listeners, I hope you all get bosses as great as Tracey was for Eileen. May all the best in business come to you.
And
Renee?
if you're the boss, be as awesome as Tracey.
yeah.
Good point. We hope you all have a great week. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you all again next week. So
Awesome.
bye for now.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Brains, Brawn, and Bougie. Thanks for listening, friends.
Be sure to follow our podcast so you're the first to know when a new episode drops. And please don't forget to share with your friends.
We'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas. So drop us a note at info@brainsbrawnandbougie.com. Until next time, don't forget to bring the brains, bring the brawn, and always bring the bougie.
Brains, brawn, and bougie, yeah, we bring the whole thing. Smart talk, strong moves, living life like a queen. Tune in, level up.